My marriage didn't fall apart in one day. It cracked slowly, from very small, silent things, until the moment I realized everything started from the gym. I've lived in Austin, Texas for over 10 years, a hot, youthful city filled with gyms, trainers who look like they stepped out of ads, and people obsessed with self-improvement. I used to think Austin was an easy place to live. My IT job was stable, the income good, and my 7-year marriage with Emily used to feel peaceful. Until she started changing, and Austin suddenly became a place more unfamiliar than ever. I'm Tyler Hayes, 35, an IT specialist. I'm not the type of man who talks much or enjoys prying. I believe in loyalty, calmness at home, and the habit of watching Netflix with my wife every night. My wife, Emily Hayes, 32, works in HR for a logistics company. She used to be gentle, soft-spoken, and always preferred staying home and cooking with me. And then there's Derek Cole, 29, a personal trainer at Iron Max Fitness. I hadn't met him at this point, but the name Derek started appearing in my head more often than usual, through the way Emily mentioned him with a tone a little too cheerful. Everything began when Emily decided to change herself. She said she wanted to be healthier, more confident. I completely supported her, but the change didn't stop at workout schedules. Emily wore more makeup. She bought tight athletic outfits she had never used before. She went to the gym 5, then 6 days a week. And strangest of all, the cold attitude whenever I asked about her day. She said, "Stop asking so much. I just need some space." I started feeling uncomfortable in my own house. One evening, Emily stayed in the bathroom longer than usual. Her phone was on the table. It lit up with a notification. "Great session. See you tomorrow. Derek." I didn't try to open the message, though a simple swipe would have shown me everything. I told myself, don't be paranoid. Maybe he's just a friendly trainer. But from that night on, Emily changed the phone's password. Then came the bank statements, multiple payments from Iron Max Fitness, private PT sessions with unusually high fees, a Visa transaction at 9:41 p.m., the time she said she was talking with a friend. I began to observe quietly. She came home late repeatedly. New perfume scent. A nervous look whenever I asked where she had been. One night, Emily sent me a selfie from the gym. But in the mirror behind her, I saw the silhouette of a man standing extremely close. Not clear enough to recognize, but I knew he wasn't just a random gym member. That evening, Emily came home late. The strap of her workout top had a mark that looked like a hand grip. I asked, "What happened to you?" Emily snapped instantly, as if I had just insulted her. "Stop controlling me, okay? I was just working out." It was the first time she used that tone on me. Something was very wrong, and I knew that if I just waited for answers from her, I would never get the truth. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and said, "Okay, go shower." But in my mind, a decision was already made. If Emily wouldn't tell me the truth, I would find it myself. I went on Amazon, searched for mini hidden camera, wireless recording device, keychain spy cam. I ordered a tiny camera the size of my thumb. It arrived the next morning. I knew I was stepping into a phase most men never want to face. But if the truth was slowly killing my marriage, then I had to dig it out myself. When I held the camera in my hand, small and light like a toy, I suddenly realized this wasn't just a camera. It was the line between my old life and the storm waiting ahead. And I, Tyler Hayes, was about to walk straight into that storm, even knowing it would destroy everything. I never expected that a tiny $59 camera from Amazon would become the fuse that ignited all the tragedy, and also the key that unlocked the truth I feared the most. Iron Max Fitness sits right in the center of Austin, always packed in the afternoon. It has a mix of sweat, EDM music, weights slamming onto the floor, and trainers who act way too friendly. This is where Emily spent most of her time, and now it was also where I aimed to find my answers. Besides Emily and Derek, there was Grant Walker, 54, the gym owner. A man who looked strong on the outside, but carried the pale expression of someone drowning in debt. Grant spoke quickly, as if he were always rushing after something he would never catch. I didn't know yet how deeply I would end up involved in his life, but at this point, I considered him just a minor detail in my plan. On the third morning after receiving the camera, I decided to place it in Emily's gym bag. It was small enough to fit neatly into the phone compartment. I pretended to put the wrong water bottle into her bag so I had a reason to touch her stuff. Emily didn't suspect anything. That day, I opened the camera app on my phone every time I had a break. The signal was blurry, shaky, but clear enough for me to see Emily walking into Iron Max. The first session looked normal. Emily did cardio, ran on the treadmill, then lifted light weights. Derek appeared, guiding her very closely, maybe too closely. But it was still within the range of not enough to conclude. I kept monitoring for 3 days. On the third day, the camera caught Derek placing his hand on Emily's waist while adjusting her posture. His hand stayed there longer than necessary. Emily didn't move away. I felt something heat up in my chest, anger, sadness, discomfort, all blending together. But I forced myself to stay calm. That night, the camera captured a moment that made my hands shake as I held my phone. Emily and Derek hugging in the old PT room, the one with no mirrors, rarely used, and with almost no gym-installed cameras. I switched the video to full screen. It wasn't a congratulatory hug. It wasn't a friendly hug. It was the kind of hug that belongs to a married couple. Derek wrapped his arms around Emily's neck. Emily rested her head on his shoulder. They stood like that for about 15 seconds. Those 15 seconds felt like a lifetime to me. And then, he kissed her cheek. Emily didn't pull away. My heart dropped to the bottom. But my mind turned frighteningly cold. I didn't call Emily. I didn't text her. I saved the video to an external drive and backed up another copy to the cloud. I didn't tell anyone, not even a single friend. I used to think that if I ever caught my wife cheating, I would scream, destroy something, or lose control. But in that moment, all I felt was a sharp, icy silence spreading in my mind. I understood one thing. If Emily had betrayed me, she would lie until the end. And if I wanted the full truth, I needed to control this game my way. That night, I opened my laptop and looked up Iron Max Fitness's financial information. Loans, shares, cash flow status. I discovered Iron Max was drowning in debt, and Grant Walker was trying to sell part of his shares to pay off an overdue bank loan. I stared at the screen, feeling a spark flash in my head. If that place was where Emily betrayed me, then I would own that place. And this was only the beginning. I didn't come to Iron Max to work out. I came to buy the very place where my wife had used to betray me, and no one knew I was about to crush their world from the inside. The next morning, I took half a day off from work. Austin was hotter than usual, with glass buildings reflecting the burning sunlight. I walked into Iron Max's administrative office on the second floor of an old commercial complex. Inside was a dim, humid space filled with neglected posters of new training courses nobody seemed interested in. In that small office was Grant Walker, the gym's owner. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose, and he held a cup of cold coffee. When I walked in, his eyes carried the exhausted look of someone burdened, not by lack of sleep, but by something bigger than money. Beside him was Samuel Lee, the head accountant, the one who organized Iron Max's financial records, payrolls, and transaction history. Samuel looked cold and focused, but I could clearly see the frustration in his eyes regarding the gym's current state. I said plainly, "I'm interested in buying Iron Max's shares." Grant looked at me as if I were joking. "You want to buy a gym drowning in debt?" I replied, "I know exactly how much it owes." Both Grant and Samuel froze. I knew I was stepping into dangerous territory, but it was the danger I wanted. If I wanted to destroy Derek, I had to start with the place he lived off. Grant opened the files. I reviewed everything. Overdue bank loans, rising operation costs, staff salaries delayed 1 to 2 weeks, membership cancellations increasing. Iron Max was dying. Grant sighed. "If I don't sell, I'll be bankrupt in 3 months. But no one is crazy enough to buy this." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I will." Samuel raised his head. Are you sure? This isn't a good investment. I knew that, but I didn't tell them the real reason. Instead, I answered, I see potential. I contacted my lawyer, Megan Price, to prepare the contract. The moment she heard my request, she immediately said, if this is what you want, I'll make sure everything is legal and discreet. I emphasized the word discreet. No one could know I was the new owner, especially Emily and Derek. Grant suggested we sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. I signed without hesitation. When Samuel handed me Derek's work schedule to complete the personnel records, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Derek had private PT sessions with 8 other women, mostly at late hours or outside the approved schedule. This wasn't a friendly trainer. He was a predator. After signing the preliminary agreement, I requested to inspect the entire facility. We walked around Iron Max, the main weight area, the boxing zone, the cardio section, the old PT room, the same room I had seen Emily in through the camera. I looked around and said to Grant, this room doesn't have security cameras. Grant nodded, awkward. Yeah, staff said clients needed privacy. I replied, not anymore. That very day, I hired a company to install a fully legal camera system covering shared areas, hallways, and PT rooms. This was entirely justified under harassment prevention and safety assurance. I was building the biggest trap of my life, and Derek had no idea. At the end of the meeting, Grant extended his hand. Congratulations, you're about to become the primary owner of Iron Max. I shook his hand, feeling it tremble with relief. I didn't tremble. I felt calm in a cold, focused way. From now on, I owned the place where my wife cheated on me, and I would turn it into the place where I exposed them. As I walked out of the office, I looked back at the Iron Max building one more time. Tomorrow, I would officially sign the full acquisition. Tomorrow, I would become Derek's boss. And tomorrow, I would begin destroying his life in ways he could never imagine. This was no longer the pain of a husband. This had become the revenge plan of a man about to take everything back, and take everything he deserved to lose. I had never seen Derek this confident. He walked into the meeting room as if he was about to receive the Trainer of the Year award. He had no idea today was the day he would be buried alive, right in front of all Iron Max staff. The all-hands meeting took place at 10 a.m. Iron Max had been refitted with a new sound system, projector screen, and rows of chairs arranged in a corporate style. The room was bright, with the lingering smell of disinfectant mixed with the sweat of countless past workouts. In front was the large screen, where I was about to play a video that could destroy 2 lives, Derek's and Emily's. Derek Cole, the man who thought he was the center of the universe. Tight shirt, smug smile, arrogant walk. Emily Hayes. I invited her under the excuse of a VIP client meeting, but I really needed her to witness everything. Iron Max employees, around 40 people, most unaware of what was coming. Grant Walker, still acting as temporary manager until I completed the full transfer. And then there was me, the new owner of Iron Max, the one about to shock them all. When Grant stood up to make the opening remarks, everyone still thought this was just a restructuring announcement. Derek sat in the front row, arms crossed, leg bouncing, the kind of bounce from someone who thought he was being favored. Emily sat in the back, unaware of my presence. I walked in last, exactly when Grant said, "And now, let me introduce the new owner of Iron Max." The whole room turned. Derek smiled confidently, until he saw me. That smile froze on his face instantly, but I saw it clearly. I walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and said, "Thank you, everyone. As of today, I, Tyler Hayes, am officially the owner of Iron Max." Shock spread across the room. Emily stood up, mouth open but unable to speak. She looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. Derek stared at me, then at Emily, then back at me, like someone who had just been slapped by the air. I continued calmly. "We will begin a new era here. Transparency, safety, zero harassment, zero exploitation of clients." I saw Derek's face twitch. And to show why these policies are necessary, I pressed the remote. The screen lit up. The footage from the camera in Emily's gym bag appeared, slightly shaky, but clear. The scene of Emily and Derek hugging in the old PT room. Voices erupted across the room. What the? Is that Derek? Oh my God, his face isn't even blurred. Emily covered her mouth and collapsed back into her chair. Derek turned red, then pale as if blood drained out of him. I didn't show the part where he kissed her. I didn't need to publicly humiliate Emily, but I was smart enough not to blur Derek's face. A female employee stood up. He touched me like that too. Then another. Me too. After hours, in the PT room. The entire room exploded. Derek's disgusting truth was exposed completely. I turned off the video and said, Derek Cole, you are terminated immediately for unethical conduct, client harassment, and falsifying work hours. You will not set foot in Iron Max again. Derek stood up, trying to appear composed. You have no right. I cut him off. I'm the new owner. I have every right. Derek looked at Emily for help, but she was crying uncontrollably. Security, whom I had arranged beforehand, stepped inside. Derek muttered curses under his breath before being escorted out under dozens of disgusted and disappointed stares. After the room cleared, Emily ran after me, tears streaming down her face. Tyler, we need to talk. I looked at her with the eyes of a man who had already lost a piece of himself. Tonight, be home before me. I walked out of Iron Max in cold silence. Today's exposure was only the overture. The rest, divorce, finances, and justice, was still ahead. And I was ready for all of it. I thought I already knew everything, but it turned out the truth was filthier than what the camera had recorded. And that night, I realized the exposure at Iron Max was only the tip of an iceberg whose depths held things far more disturbing than the pain of betrayal. The night after that fateful meeting, I came home later than usual. Not because of work, but because I didn't want to step back into a house where Emily was waiting, where every object held memories of us that now felt like shards of glass stabbing straight into my chest. The house was silent. The living room light was on. Emily sat on the sofa, hands clutching each other, as if she was afraid they would tremble. The air was so thick it felt suffocating. Besides Emily, who used to be my whole world, there was another person who would appear later that night. Ashley Carter, 27, a marketing employee, who claimed to be one of Derek's victims. And on video call was Megan Price, my lawyer, sitting at her desk with a coffee mug in hand, ready for the legal battle ahead. Emily jumped up when I opened the door. Tyler, I'm sorry. Please let me explain. I didn't argue. I sat across from her, keeping my voice as calm as possible. Go ahead. Explain. Emily choked up. He manipulated me. I was weak. Derek. He took advantage. I didn't mean to betray you. Her words were like a dull knife scraping against me, painful, but not sharp enough to make me believe. I looked her straight in the eyes. Then what about the messages where you invited him out? The times you sent him money? Emily fell silent. Her eyes were panicked, her fingers gripping the couch cushion until they turned white. I opened my phone and showed her the messages. See you tonight at our usual place. I miss you. Do you like the gift I bought you? I transferred it already. Buy that shirt you wanted tomorrow. Emily buried her face in her hands and sobbed loudly. I messed up, Tyler. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't answer. I had cried enough for this marriage. Now there was only emptiness left. At that moment, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. This is Ashley. I need to show you something. It's about Derek. I arranged to meet her at a nearby cafe. Ashley arrived looking exhausted, with eyes full of bitterness from someone deeply wounded. She placed her phone on the table. You're Emily's husband, right? I think you need to know what kind of person Derek is. She played a video. In it, Derek bragged to a friend in the locker room. I make women dump their husbands like it's nothing. 3 weeks of private training is all it takes." Then he laughed loudly and added, "Emily was easy. Her husband's a fool. Trusts her like she's a saint. I tell her anything and she buys it." Every word cut deeper than watching them hug. I sat there silently, my face emotionless. Ashley placed her hand on the table. "You're the first person who dared to expose him. The others, none of them had the courage." I stood up, thanked Ashley, and went home. Emily was still there, eyes swollen. I said, my voice eerily calm, even to myself, "Tomorrow, I'm filing for divorce." Emily rushed toward me. "Tyler, please, don't. I love you. It was a mistake." I took a step back, looking at her with eyes that held no remaining trust. Not once, many times. Not a mistake, a choice. Emily collapsed onto the floor, crying like a child. I stood there, but inside, there was only absolute silence. That night, I sent all the evidence to Megan to prepare the divorce filing. Derek was being accused by multiple women after the meeting. As for me, I knew this was only the prelude to a brutal legal battle. But I also knew one thing clearly. I had nothing left to lose. And when a man has nothing left to lose, he becomes more dangerous than ever. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to yell, break things, or retaliate like people do in movies. I only wanted one thing: justice. And for me, justice didn't come from fists. It came from the law. On Monday morning, I stood in front of the Travis County Courthouse. Austin's sky was gloomy, with fog resting on the stone steps. People rushed past, unaware of the man gripping a stack of documents in his hand. Inside, the place smelled of old wood, paperwork, and tension. I sat waiting for my turn with Megan Price beside me. Emily sat a few seats away, eyes swollen but trying to look composed. In today's hearing, besides me and Emily, there were Judge Laura Henderson, stern face, sharp eyes, known for fairness. Megan Price, my lawyer, gray blazer, strong and decisive voice. Michael Sharp, representing Emily, looking exhausted like he already knew this would be a losing battle. Emily wanted a 50-50 split of the marital assets. She said she was manipulated, confused, and that she still loved her husband. But Megan was better prepared. We had the video, the messages, the training schedules, the transfer receipts. And worst for Emily, we had proof she used marital funds to support Derek. The hearing began. Michael Sharp stood and delivered a long speech about how Emily didn't mean to betray, that she misunderstood Derek's true nature, that it was a moment of weakness. Emily bowed her head, playing the role of the victim perfectly. Then Megan stood. She turned on the screen and displayed the messages Emily sent to Derek. "I sent it. I booked the hotel like you said. I miss you." The room went silent. Michael Sharp tried to stop Megan from showing the video, but Judge Henderson denied his objection immediately. The footage of Emily and Derek hugging appeared, unblurred, uncut, unexplained. Emily burst into tears, but Megan wasn't done. She presented the financial report. $18,000 USD Emily transferred to Derek in 3 months. 5 hotel payments using the joint account. 2 cash withdrawals that matched nights Emily claims she was training late. I looked at Emily. She avoided my eyes like they were flames that could burn her alive. Judge Henderson straightened her posture and tapped her pen lightly on the desk. Based on the evidence, the court finds Mrs. Emily Hayes solely responsible for the breakdown of this marriage. Emily collapsed as if shot through the heart. The judge continued. The marital assets will be divided 80-20, with the majority going to Mr. Tyler Hayes. Mr. Hayes will retain full ownership of Iron Max Fitness, as it is proven to be acquired with non-marital assets. Mrs. Hayes must reimburse all funds used for the illicit relationship. The room froze. I heard Emily's heavy breathing, her attempt to hold back sobs failing miserably. The hearing ended in silence. Megan packed her files and turned to me. "Congratulations. You just won everything. I didn't smile. Winning didn't mean happiness. Winning only meant I had protected myself from the person I once loved the most. As I left the courthouse, I received a text from Grant. "Tyler, you need to see this." It was a news link. Trainer Derek Cole accused by multiple women. Comments from more victims poured in on social media. Derek had become the most disgraceful man in Austin. I looked up at the Austin sky, still as gray as it was that morning. But something inside me had changed. The divorce was done. The assets were intact. Derek's reputation was destroyed. But I knew this wasn't the final period. There was another part of my life waiting to be rewritten. Without Emily, without lies, only me and the road ahead. And I was ready to take the next step. When everything ended, I thought I would collapse. I thought my heart would stay frozen forever. But it turned out that when a man reaches the bottom of pain, the only thing left is rebirth. And I, unexpectedly, was beginning to live again. 6 months after the divorce hearing, Iron Max had completely transformed. The old gray walls had been repainted, a new logo hung at the entrance, and the atmosphere inside was no longer a place for men like Derek to take advantage of anyone. Austin had entered summer. Sunlight stretched long, golden streaks across the streets, and I stood inside the new Iron Max, watching everything run smoothly like a machine I rebuilt from ruins. Among the new staff was Grace Miller, the financial advisor who had been working with me since the early days of restructuring Iron Max. She was 31, with sharp eyes and a slow, steady way of speaking. The new personal trainers were carefully selected, ethics checked, and professionally trained. I didn't want another Derek to walk these halls. Some of the women Derek had hurt returned as well, this time with renewed trust in Iron Max and in me. Even though everything around me had changed, my heart still felt like a room that carried the smell of smoke after a large fire. Empty, smoldering, and sometimes painful. I thought I would easily stand again once justice was served, but hearts don't operate on legal logic. I still avoided opening old photo albums. I still avoided the street that led to the restaurant where Emily and I used to have our monthly dates. Many nights, I stayed awake until 3 a.m., even when my body was exhausted. The only thing keeping me from collapsing was work, and Iron Max. Grace often attended my meetings. She helped me analyze revenue, cut unnecessary expenses, and created the Ethical and Safe PT program, a program praised across the Austin community. One afternoon, while I was reviewing a cost report, Grace said, "You've done really well, Tyler." I chuckled lightly. "Better than 6 months ago, I guess." Grace tilted her head slightly, and her gaze made me feel like she could see the wounds I tried to hide. "You know, pain is real, but pain isn't the end." For a few seconds I was stunned. A simple sentence, but it made my chest feel lighter. Feeling re-energized, I returned to training seriously. I lifted more, ran farther. My body regained its strength. Clients began telling me I looked different. They didn't know it was the result of surviving a war. One evening after work, I was shutting down my computer when Grace walked into my office holding 2 iced coffees. "I think you need this." I took the cup and thanked her. Grace didn't leave like she usually did. She stood before my desk, looking directly into my eyes. "Tyler, you're stronger than you think." For some reason, her words made my heart skip a beat. In that moment, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Not the false peace I had with Emily, but real peace, coming from someone who saw me exactly as I was. As Grace was about to leave, I instinctively said, "Grace." She turned around. I took a deep breath. "Tonight, are you free? I'd like to take you to dinner." Grace looked slightly surprised, but a soft smile formed on her lips. Free. Just one word, but it lit up the entire office like another lamp had been switched on. It had been a long time since I had willingly opened my heart to anyone. When I turned off the lights and locked the doors of Iron Max, stepping out into the golden Austin dusk, I felt myself entering a new chapter. No more hatred, no more torment. only me, and the road ahead, where someone new was waiting for me to take the next step. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt truly ready. I once thought justice came from the court, but it turned out there were other forms of justice, quieter, slower. But when they arrived, they were so ruthless that even I felt a chill. And that morning, I realized it wasn't me chasing justice. Justice was finding all of us. It was an early spring morning in Austin. The sky was so clear that every white cloud looked as if it had been trimmed with a blade. I was standing inside Iron Max, watching the staff inspect the new treadmills. The rhythmic sound of the belts moving made my mind calmer than it had been in a long time. Sunlight streamed through the glass doors, stretching long beams across the floor. A perfect morning, at least for the first few minutes. Grace stood beside me, holding a revenue report. She wore a light blue shirt, her hair tied neatly back, looking both professional and warm. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A strange number. Mr. Hayes? Yes, speaking. On the other end was a police officer from Denver, his tones serious and clear. A few hours later, Emily would appear as well, a part of the final chapter I didn't ask for but knew I had to face. The officer said, "We want to inform you that Derek Cole was arrested this morning in Denver. He is connected to multiple allegations from Austin, and new victims here have also come forward." I stayed silent for a few seconds. Not happy, not triumphant, just complete. Grace gently placed her hand on my arm, as if asking whether I was okay. I only nodded. The officer added, "We may need additional statements from you later, but for now, everything is clear." News of Derek's arrest spread across social media like dry wind. His reputation collapsed completely. One article read, "Popular trainer exposed in chain of affairs and harassment cases." More victims continued to speak out. Iron Max, having been cleansed of its past, became known as the safest gym in Austin. But the turbulence wasn't fully over. At 3 p.m., Emily appeared. She stood at the entrance of Iron Max, thinner, hair frizzy, eyes exhausted. When she saw me step outside, she started crying immediately. "Tyler, please, just 1 minute." I stood still, watching. Emily approached, her voice trembling so much it was almost unintelligible. "I was wrong. I know it's all my fault. Derek is arrested. He tricked me. I was stupid, blind. Tyler, please, just one more chance. I can't live without you." I let her finish. A year ago, these words would have killed me again. But now, they couldn't reach me anymore. I looked straight into her eyes and said, as calmly as if signing a receipt, "I forgive you." Emily looked up, hope flashing in her eyes. I continued, my tone unchanged. "But forgiveness doesn't mean going back." The hope in her eyes vanished. I didn't enjoy seeing that, but I knew it was the truth she needed to hear. "You need to live your new life, and I need to live mine." Emily collapsed, covering her face, crying uncontrollably. I stood there for a few seconds, then walked away. That evening, I met with the Iron Max leadership team and announced a new program. National Code of Ethics for Personal Trainers. This wasn't a business project. It was a promise. To myself, to other victims, and to anyone who would walk into Iron Max in the future. Grace looked proud as I presented the plan. When the meeting ended, she said softly, "You're doing the right thing, Tyler." I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I felt I was moving in the right direction. Not for revenge, but for something genuinely good. Late that night, Grace and I stood at the entrance of Iron Max. The wind carried the faint scent of leftover sunlight. Grace smiled. "Want to grab dinner?" I smiled back and nodded. We walked out of Iron Max together, down a street lit with warm golden lights. Each step felt lighter, easier, as if I were stepping out of the old chapter of my life. Justice had been served. The wounds had closed. And at the end of the road, someone was waiting for me. Not because of my past, but because of who I was becoming. I didn't know what the future held. But that night, walking beside Grace under the Austin lights, I knew one thing. Betrayal once shattered me, but it also opened the life I was meant to live.